Henry Ford built tractors, then tanks, then tractors again. Every time he got richer, war destroys cities, kills millions, wipes out entire generations, and at the same time, it creates some of the largest fortunes in history. That's not an accident. It's a system. It's been running for 100 years, and right now, in 2024, it's running again. In 2022, in the first 3 months after the conflict in Ukraine began, shares of the German company Rheinmetall rose 180% over 12 months. If an investor had put 10,000 euros into Rheinmetall in January 2022, by the end of the year, they would have had 28,000. America's Lockheed Martin, maker of the F-35 fighter jet, gained 40% over the same year. The question: who pays for war and who profits from it? In 4 minutes, you'll understand how war became an economic engine. 1941, Detroit. The smell of steel, coal, and oil hangs over the city like a second sky. Ford's factories run around the clock. Outdoor speakers blare battlefront news. On the shop floors, women in oil-stained coveralls. Men who were assembling tractors yesterday, now assembling bombers. On the desk, a signed contract. It was signed 3 days after Pearl Harbor. Since then, one B-24. Liberator rolls off the assembly line every hour. 8,686 aircraft in 4 years. In 1942, the U. government banned the sale of civilian automobiles. Auto plants switched to tanks and planes. And here's the interesting part. Over the 4 years of the war, Ford earned more than it had in the previous 20 peacetime years. That wasn't a miracle. It was the entire economy being retooled for a single customer, the government. Guaranteed. Without risk. America's GDP grew from $92 billion in 1939 to $223 billion in 1945. A gain of $131 billion, more than doubled. Unemployment, which had been 17% at the end of the 1930s, fell to 1%. War accomplished what Roosevelt's New Deal could not. It turned depression into super profit, but that's only one side. At the same time, the German economy was built on looting occupied territories. The Japanese economy depended on resource imports that American submarines cut off. The American economy ran on domestic production that didn't rely on external supply lines. When the war ended, Germany and Japan lay in ruins. American factories were still running. In 1944, 40% of global GDP was being spent on war. Every other dollar, mark, pound, ruble produced went to military needs. That's an incredible concentration of resources. And after the war, economists feared collapse. Cancel the contracts, industry collapses, unemployment returns. But the collapse never happened, because war didn't end. It just changed form. In 1947, the United States launched the Marshall Plan, $13.5 billion for European reconstruction. That's $150 billion in today's money. The money went to buy American equipment, American machinery, American construction materials. Destruction created a new market, and that market again went to the same corporations. But the real point of no return came later. In 1961, President Dwight Eisenhower, the general who commanded Allied forces in Europe, gave his farewell address. He said, "We must guard against the unwarranted influence of the military-industrial complex." His words were remembered. His advice went unheeded, because the Cold War, which had been underway for nearly 15 years, meant a permanent arms race. Every year, tens of billions on new missiles, planes, submarines. The companies that lived off war received a permanent contract. Remember the name? Dwight Eisenhower. He warned. And his own administration set in motion a mechanism that is still running. The war ended. The contracts didn't. Tanks stopped being produced. Missiles kept being produced. Bombers kept being produced. The system remained. In the 1990s, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, the American military-industrial complex shrank by a third. 600,000 engineers, workers, designers lost their jobs. Cities that depended on military plants became depressed zones. In 1993, Lockheed Martin laid off 15,000 people in a single quarter. 10 years later, after 9/11, the company hired twice as many. What would you choose? Shrink the military-industrial complex. Lose jobs, devastate entire regions, keep it, preserve dependence on conflict. By now, we know which choice was made. 20 years in Afghanistan, 240,000 total deaths, and $500 billion in Lockheed Martin contracts over the same period. That's not a judgment. That's fact. The dark side of profit. The side that doesn't make it into the reports. The casualties of war. The ones who don't get dividends. In 2022, it all repeated. Europe, which had been shrinking its armies for decades, urgently ramps up procurement. Rheinmetall opens a new ammunition factory, the first in Germany in 30 years. Investment, 300 million euros. In the first 3 months of the conflict, the defense sector stock index rose 23%. Meanwhile, the broad market fell 5%. War became the only growth sector. 100 billion euros. That's how much Germany allocated in 2024 for a special army fund. That's the country's entire annual healthcare budget. In a single year? For weapons? Who pays? The taxpayer. Who gets paid? Shareholders of the defense industry, their executives, their lobbyists, and entire regions where factories are the only employers. 3 factors make this system stable. First, government contracts displace market risk. Companies know their products will be bought, even if there's no civilian demand for them. Second, post-war reconstruction is a new market. Destruction creates demand for rebuilding, which again goes to the same corporations. Third, the political cycle. As soon as an external enemy appears, the defense budget grows automatically, without debate. It happened in 1941. Same pattern. In 2001, in 2022, now. The military-industrial complex has become an integral part of the economy in developed countries. Even when there are no wars, it exists. It shapes policy, influences elections, lobbies for its interests, and most importantly, it created a precedent. War can be profitable for those who don't fight it. That changes the nature of conflicts. They become more protracted because the side that profits has no interest in seeing them end quickly. We live in a system where death yields profit. That's not someone's evil intent. It's a structural mechanism. The question that remains unanswered: can a society that built its prosperity on military contracts ever walk away from them? Or is war not the exception, but the rule? Henry Ford built tractors, then tanks, then tractors again. Every time he got richer. But the tractors he built after the war were no longer just tractors. They were products of a system that had learned to profit from conflict. And that system didn't disappear. It's just waiting for the next crisis. The same assembly line, the same contract. Only now, it can turn out both civilian goods and weapons, whatever the customer wants.
If you were an investor in 2022, would you buy shares in the military-industrial complex?